If you're listening to this, you've already begun to slow down. The lights are dim, the world outside is fading to a soft hum, and somewhere between thought and dream, a question drifts in. How did it all begin? Before there were stars, before there was even darkness, there was a kind of stillness, an endless inhale waiting to exhale, and from that breath, the universe began. It's strange, isn't it, that something so vast and ancient shares the same rhythm as you do now, expanding and contracting, waking and resting. The same pulse that once scattered galaxies still echoes, quietly, in your heartbeat. Tonight, we'll follow that rhythm back through time. We'll listen to the sleepy heartbeat of creation, to the fog that once wrapped the cosmos like a blanket, to the first flickers of light daring to pierce the dark. No need to understand everything. Just breathe and drift. Let curiosity loosen like a muscle unclenching. If this brings you calm, stay with me as we drift deeper into the sleepy history of the universe. Settle a little deeper. Feel the mattress hold you, the way space itself once held everything close, intimate, without corners to hide in. Before there were stars or dust or the idea of a sky, there was a compact, trembling hush, not a place inside the universe, but the universe itself, before it learned how to be wide. If you listen past the small sounds of your room air moving through a vent, a clock you forgot you owned, you can almost hear it. A pressure like held breath, the moment right before a hush becomes a whisper. People call it the beginning, but beginnings are messy words. What started wasn't an explosion flinging shrapnel into emptiness. Emptiness learned how to stretch. Space didn't open like a door. It uncurled like a hand. Time, which had nowhere to be, became a direction and then a river. In that first instant, everything that would become mountains and microbes and your tired shoulders existed as possibility, stacked and folded, waiting for a cue. Imagine the smallest tremor on the surface of a lake, then shrink that thought until it slips between thoughts themselves. Tiny, quantum shivers, random, restless. Not yet anything rippled the fabric we would later call reality. They were so slight that if you were there would be no you to notice. But those ripples would one day decide where galaxies gathered, where darkness made room for light. You don't have to see it. Let it wash over you like warm water. The earliest fraction of a second is more than any clock can politely count. A flash of expansion so fast that words like fast lose their shape, smooths the fabric of space the way a gentle palm smooths a wrinkled sheet. That smoothing doesn't erase the tiny tremors. It stretches them, the way dusk stretches shadows across a quiet street. From those stretched patterns, the universe learns structure, like a lullaby seeded with a rhythm that keeps returning, softer each time. It was unimaginably hot, so hot that hot is a candle beside a star, and even that comparison is a sleepy metaphor trying to get you to rest. Heat is just energy crowded together. Crowded things make noise. Picture a room too full at a party, everything bumping into everything else, names colliding into laughter and then forgetting themselves. That's what the earliest moments were like. Particles flashing into and out of being, their identities not yet settled. Quarks didn't know they were quarks. They were notes in a blur of music, learning its key. Light wasn't free to travel. It kept getting grabbed by matter, the way a thought gets snagged by worry and can't find the door. And yet, even in that turmoil, there was a promise. As the universe expanded, it cooled. Cooling is not just losing heat, it is learning gentleness. When the crowd spreads out, people stop stepping on each other's toes. They can breathe. The universe, too, learned to breathe. You can follow along if you like. In through the nose, slow, kind, out through the mouth, even slower, as if you're fogging a window whose view is just about to clear. We tend to imagine the beginning as lonely, but loneliness is an emotion inside time, and time had just barely begun. If anything, the beginning is profoundly communal. Every bit of what would become you was once in conversation with every bit of what would become everything else. There were no borders, only gradients, no edges, only the soft suggestion of difference, expanding. The word origin tempts us with final answers, but beginnings are more like questions that learn to ask themselves, why this recipe and not another? Why a universe whose rules produce stars and oceans, and an animal that wonders about oceans while listening to a stranger at night? Maybe the better way to hold the beginning is to let it hold you. You have your own origins. The first time you remembered a scent and felt your chest ache. The first time you learned what silence can say. Those moments didn't require a lecture. They required attention. The universe is asking for the same kind of attention now. A soft gaze, unfocused and steady. There is an afterglow. We can still measure the faint, uniform light that fills all directions. The way a room keeps the shape of music after the last note dies. It is not the beginning itself, but its memory. If you've ever left a lamp on and then turned it off, and your eyes kept seeing light that wasn't there, you felt a tiny echo of this vast persistence. The universe remembers its infancy in whispers, and those whispers have texture, tiny warm spots and cool spots, like the nap of a blanket brushed in different directions. Those textures are the fingerprints of the first quivers, and the fingerprint, over billions of years, becomes a map. You might ask where the beginning came from. Maybe from nothing. Maybe from a sea of maybes. Maybe our language has wandered too far in the dark and needs to sit down. It's okay. Not knowing is a kind of rest. Think of the questions like stars you can't name. Their light still reaches you. You can borrow their calm without understanding their chemistry. Lie back. Feel the weight of your body settle into the bed, and notice how gravity always remembers you. The same gravity that will teach matter to gather, that will coax clouds to collapse into stars, is holding your ankles, your knees, your scalp. You are not separate from the beginning. You are its quiet continuation. The first inhale, call it a bloom, a flare, a softness expanding, was not violent in the way we fear violence. It was more like a seed deciding it is time. Seeds do not explode so much as they relent. They ease their shell apart and let form happen to them. That is what the universe did. It let itself happen. In the letting, time unfolded and space learned distance. Light rehearsed the long journey it would make, again and again, in straight lines that aren't straight because space is allowed to bend. And the smallest disturbances, stretched nearly beyond recognition, wrote the baseline under everything else, the tempo to which stars would later keep time. Maybe you imagine colors. You can. Not the crisp palette of a sunrise, but a saturating hue without edges, a warmth more felt than seen. Then a dimming, not of loss, but of invitation. As expansion continues, the frantic crowding eases. Relationships become possible. Particles that could not keep hold of each other now can. They discover companionship the way two slow dancers, finally unjostled, find a sway that feels like truth. From that sway, something like stability is born, not yet atoms, not yet light we could swim in, but the idea of belonging made physical. When you breathe out, notice how the exhale softens the room. The beginning did something similar. In the exhale of expansion, the universe became hospitable to what comes next. There would be stages, the quick gathering of building blocks, the cooling that permits intimacy, the moment when light can finally travel far without being caught. Each stage is less a step on a staircase and more a deepening of trust. The cosmos learns to trust itself with complexity, the way you learn to trust your body to sleep when you stop asking it to. If there is a feeling to the beginning, it is not triumph, but tenderness. Consider how gently a nurse speaks when waking someone who should not be startled, or how the ocean, for all its mass, can be almost noiseless on a windless night. The origin is that kind of quiet bigness. Nothing in your day-to-day was required to exist, and yet it did. Here you are, carried by a history that started without edges and decided to grow some, so that stories could have shapes and people could have names. Rest your attention at your chest. Feel the rise and fall, the oldest rhythm you know. The universe's first rhythm was expansion. It still expands. Galaxies drift like lanterns released over black water, growing farther apart, not because they are leaving something, but because the water itself is widening. The image is imperfect, like all images, but comforting. Many lights, moving gently, not in panic, but in a slow choreography. We will not ask the beginning to explain itself more than it wants to. The important part, for tonight, is that from that first inhale, hot, crowded, shimmering with possibility, came a path that leads, unbroken, to this room. To you turning your face toward a pillow, to the pause between your breaths lengthening, to an awareness loosening its grip and drifting like a feather through the dark. Soon, the crowded music will soften enough for the first notes of matter to stand out, a melody emerging from a hum. Quarks will find company, protons will learn their shape, and the universe will begin to knead its fine dough. For now, stay here, at the threshold. Listen to the original hush, growing wider until it becomes silence you can rest inside. And as we float forward on that silence, we'll watch how the first ingredients of everything you know begin to gather, patient as night-blooming flowers opening under a sky that's just learned how to be vast. Let your shoulders soften. The room has learned your shape. The night has adjusted its weight to match you. We've drifted past the first inhale of the universe, past the moment when space hurried itself into being. Now we arrive in a kitchen with no walls, where heat is an invisible baker, and everything that will ever be is sifted again and again until it's fine enough to hold together. At first, it's too crowded for introductions. Everything jostles. Energy and not yet particles share the same breath. Names don't stick. Identities smudge. But with expansion comes a kind of mercy. The rush eases almost imperceptibly, like a party that's thinning out toward midnight. The music turned down but still warm. In that easing, the earliest hints of companionship appear. Imagine the universe as dough before it learns to rise, sticky, restless, full of potential. Inside it, tiny ingredients begin to realize they can keep company. Quarks, those small stubborn notes in the cosmic chord, start to hum in threes. They're particular about this. They prefer to be held. 2 up and 1 down, or 2 down and 1 up, arrangements that will be known much later as protons and neutrons. Think instead of hands clasping in the dark, each finding its match by feel. A new steadiness arrives. The crowd is still a swirl, but now there are islands inside the swirl, little trios that don't immediately dissolve. It's still too hot for light to travel freely. Any attempt it makes to cross the room ends with a polite but firm interruption. "Stay," says matter, and light does. bouncing, scattering, changing direction like a thought that can't sit still. You know the feeling when your day has been so full that even in bed your mind keeps bumping into its own furniture. That's the universe right now. Bright, but crowded. Luminous, but unable to rest its light anywhere for long. Pieces keep finding each other. Neutrons, slightly heavier, are shy in their own way. They can't linger alone forever. Protons are bolder, more durable in crowds. Together they move through a bath of ghosts' neutrinos, so gentle they slip through almost everything, like a breeze moving through lace. If you hold out your hand in the darkness, unimaginable numbers of these quiet passers-by threaded every second, unbothered, unnoticed. They were present even then, already experts in the art of passing through. The temperature falls the way a held breath becomes an exhale, long and loosening. Falling temperature is not a failure. It is permission. With permission, the universe can try delicate work. Picture a hush in the baker's kitchen. Flour settling, air cooler, hands steadier. In that hush, protons and neutrons begin to dance in brief embraces. Most steps are missteps, falling apart as quickly as they begin, but some hold. A handful of neutrons join protons to make the first small, brave nuclei. 2 and 2 become helium-4, a little island of stability in the boiling sea. There's deuterium, a proton with a neutron leaning against it, and tritium, and helium-3, and traces of lithium, like early punctuation in a language not yet written. The chemistry set is simple and shy. It only knows a few words, but it repeats them carefully, like a child learning to read by lamplight. There is an elegance to the way the reactions choose themselves. They are not chosen by will or taste, but by possibility. The heat allows some unions and forbids others, as if a host is checking the list at a door. You may come in, you must wait. Not yet, never. Carbon, oxygen, iron, those will require cooler rooms and grander stages. For now, hydrogen and helium write the prologue. This is not a limitation so much as a lullaby. Simple elements sing simple songs, and the universe needs this simplicity to settle its heart. If you listen with your whole body, you can sense the quiet arithmetic at work. For a brief window minutes, but don't bother with minutes tonight. Think of them as the length of a sigh held by a patient sky. The pace is right. Not too hot for nuclei to be torn apart. Not too cold for them to find each other too slowly. It is a pocket of just enough. And within it, the fine flower of being clumps into its first small pearls. Let your jaw unclench. Feel your tongue rest against the roof of your mouth. If thoughts arrive, let them come as softly as ash falls. The universe is doing the same with its leftovers, letting unstable bits decay into quieter shapes, sorting without hurrying. Neutrons, uncomfortable alone, slip into transformations, becoming protons with a whisper of light and a breath of ghostly companions. Balance emerges not from rules barked in a classroom, but from a long, patient exhale. We like to imagine creation as a drama with revolutions and fanfare, but this stage is made of patience. The numbers are set by what the universe can bear at a given temperature, a given density. The way your evening is shaped by how long today lasted and the angle of the lamp beside your bed. In a different universe, with slightly different settings, the recipe might have failed too few protons to make stars later, too many neutrons to leave room for companionship. But here, in this story, the proportions settle into something that will work. Not perfect, not planned, just workable, which is often better than perfect. Hydrogen is content to be simple. A single proton, sometimes with a neutron nearby. Helium, with 2 protons and 2 neutrons, is small, but proud of its balanced hush. Lithium appears in whispers, more rumors warmer than crowd. And then, as the window of just enough closes, the reactions pause. The kitchen grows too cool for that particular chemistry. The batter is no longer willing. That's all right. Enough has been done for now. What remains is a universe filled mostly with hydrogen, a generous portion of helium, and a trace of other shy things. Nothing fancy, but everything essential for what will follow. The fine flour is ready. The dough has found its first resilience. The room is still opaque. Light cannot yet tread without tripping, but the texture has changed. Instead of a formless blaze, there's a glow with structure hidden inside it. Like the grain in wood you can't quite see until the light hits from the side. Rest your attention on the part of you that feels most tired. Maybe it's between your eyes. Maybe it's the muscles at the base of your neck. Imagine that tiredness as a little cluster of warmth, a small nucleus gathering comfort around it. The way protons and neutrons found stability, let those muscles find it too, sinking toward an easy arrangement. There's nothing to hold up right now. Gravity will do the holding for you, the way it always has. Between the particles, a conversation continues silent, steady, gravitational. It's faint, like a melody you only notice when the room is quiet, but it will shape everything. The tiny ripples stretched in the first moments are still present, as patterns of slightly more and slightly less, the smallest of inequalities. Where there's a whisper more matter, gravity tugs a whisper stronger. Over time, longer than any clock in your home can bear to count, those whispers will become calls, and those calls will become gatherings. Clouds will learn to fall inward, to become stars, but not yet. Tonight, we linger in the before, where the ingredients have just learned their names and are practicing them in low voices. There is a kindness in the order of events. First, the universe creates what's simple and sturdy. It doesn't rush the delicate architecture. It builds a pantry. Hydrogen for burning, helium for balance, a little lithium like a promise tucked into a pocket. The elaborate flavors, carbon's poetry, oxygen's clarity, iron's steadiness will wait for furnaces not yet lit. You can trust this pace. You can match it with your own. You do not need to become a star by morning. It is enough to become heavier with sleep. In the glow that fills everything, there is a memory being written. The light can't travel far, but that doesn't mean it's idle. It exchanges energy with matter, bumping and bouncing, an endless polite dance that will leave an imprint on the room itself. Much later, when the fog lifts and that light finally streams free, it will carry with it a detailed, gentle map of this age, the temperatures, the tiny differences, the fingerprints of the first gatherings. We will call that map a background, but in truth, it is a cradle song, humming beneath every other sound the cosmos will make. You might wonder whether all of this had to happen the way it did. Maybe not. Maybe there are rooms where the music never softened, or where it cooled too quickly to catch a tune. But this is the room we are in, warm enough to be alive to its own story, cool enough to let that story be told. The comfort you feel as you sink deeper is not separate from the comfort of atoms finding their first friendships. It's the same logic, a world learning how to hold itself without breaking. Outside your window, whatever hour it is, there is a sky that doesn't end. Somewhere beyond the ceiling and the roof and the familiar path of clouds, the fine flower we've spoken of is still at work, transformed and transforming. The helium made in those first minutes still floats in the atmospheres of planets and the hearts of stars. The hydrogen is everywhere, like a simple word repeated until it becomes a language. You are breathing descendants of that age. In and out. In and out. The recipe never quite stops. It becomes more itself with time. Now, the scene tilts toward its next kindness. the universe will cool further. Electrons, which have been flitting like nervous birds, will soon find perches around nuclei and decide to stay. The fog will thin. Light will be unhooked from matter and allowed to travel, straight enough to seem straight in a space that has learned to curve. From that clarity, darkness will become a canvas rather than a wall. And on that canvas, the first stars will practice their small, brave fires. For the moment, though, keep floating in this thick, luminous quiet. Let the world be grainy and gentle. The quarks have learned their trios. The protons and neutrons have gathered into simple, sturdy hearts. The pantry is stocked. The room is dim, warm, and patient. Your breath is the metronome. When you're ready, we'll follow the light as it loosens from the crowd and pours into a universe that has, at last, learned to let it through. Drift a little closer to the window of time where the glow thins. We've left the pantry warm with hydrogen and helium. The crowd has calmed. Now the universe learns a quieter skill: how to hold. Electrons, which have been flitting like restless birds through a bright, busy sky, begin to feel the pull of nuclei with enough patience to stay. The air, if we could call it air, cools the way tea cools forgotten on a bedside table. And in that cooling, a decision is made everywhere at once. Let's settle. Imagine the room you're in, exhaling not loudly, not all at once, just a slow relaxation that releases something you didn't know you were carrying. That is how the electrons settle, choosing orbits like perches in a dusk-lit tree. In a sweep that isn't a sweep, across a cosmos too wide for metaphors, protons and electrons become atoms. Hydrogen, simple and honest, gathers its single companion. Helium tucks two electrons into a balance that feels like home. With this, the fog loses its stubborn grip. Before this, light was a guest who could never reach the door. Every step it took, matter stopped it and changed its mind. Now, the door opens. The moment has a soft, decisive sound, like a latch lifting. Physicists call it recombination, but tonight you can call it clarity. Photons, countless, patient, full of the room's memory, are released. They begin their long, almost straight travel through a space that is suddenly transparent. The glow that fills everything doesn't stop. It simply stops being trapped. It pours outward. It goes on pouring still. We can still feel that light, faint and everywhere. It is not a beam or a spotlight. It is a temperature you could curl your palm around if your palm were as wide as the sky. It carries the imprint of earlier ages, the tiny differences, the delicate nap of the blanket brushed in opposite directions that tells the story of where the universe was a whisper, denser or thinner, a breath warmer or cooler. Later we'll call it a background, as if it sits behind everything like a curtain. But in truth, it threads through everything, like the scent that lingers after someone you love leaves a room. What follows sometimes gets the loneliest name: the Dark Ages. Not because nothing happens, but because nothing shines. The fog has lifted, the light streams, and yet the universe is dim to eyes that crave pinpoints and flares. Darkness doesn't mean emptiness. It means possibility without a lamp. In this darkness, gravity hums its undersong. Matter listens. And, where the earlier ripples were a touch stronger, hydrogen drifts inward, imperceptibly, patiently. After unimaginable time, clouds begin to learn the art of falling toward their own centers. The lesson is slow and inexorable, like a thought returning overnight until it remembers what it came for. You know this lesson. Your breath falls inward on its own. Your eyelids learn to close. The body finds configurations it can keep. A contracting cloud, too, is a body in search of a keepable arrangement. As hydrogen gathers, the center warms friction from the falling, pressure from the crowding, the simple heat of many things in one small volume. Somewhere, the weight becomes enough. Gravity tries to keep collapsing. Pressure answers back. The core grows hot enough for a new kind of intimacy, one that turns longing into fire. Hydrogen begins to fuse. The first stars are not gentle in size. Born from clouds, left to fall with little interference, they are massive, brief, and bright. The way a shout is bright brief, not because they are careless, but because they are generous. They spend themselves quickly. Their light arrives like the first candles struck in a cavern. The walls leap forward. Shapes that were only suggestion become edges and forms. The dark ages don't end with a bang so much as with a hush that finds a voice. Pockets of space brighten. The black between becomes gray, then thin. In time, the sea of hydrogen and helium, once neutral and calm, finds itself bathed in enough high-energy light that electrons are coaxed free again. The medium becomes ionized. It is as if sunrise doesn't just light the fields, it changes the fields into something that carries light better. Starlight is not only illumination, it's construction. Inside these first suns, hydrogen fuses to helium, and the chain continues toward heavier elements. But the stars' lives are short, their throats too wide, their appetites fierce. They swell, they tremble, they end, and in ending, they throw out what they have made. A star's death writes in bold what its life drafted in pencil. The space between clouds grows salted with new possibilities. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, the alphabet that will let future stars and future worlds spell more complex poems. For now, we are still in the early stanzas, but the rhyme scheme is set. Gravity gathers, pressure ignites, light changes the room, and the room, grateful, learns to host more light. The cosmos in this era is a lantern field without paths. Stars kindle in little clumps, then, in larger gatherings, their gravities entangling like fingers that find each other in sleep. Clumps attract clumps. Streams of matter pursue one another along the scaffolding of unseen mass, converging, colliding, swirling into structures that will, in patience, become the first galaxies. But keep that for the next chapter. For now, stay close to the intimacy of the first fires. Picture one of those early stars, enormous, blue-white, its light arriving with the clarity of new snow under moonlight. Around it, a bubble of transformed space grows ionized, warmer, more transparent. Farther out, the night remains neutral, waiting. Bubbles expand, touch, merge, and the universe slowly learns to be bright in bulk, not just in islands. And what of the light that left at recombination, that old memory? It still travels. It passes through this growing embroidery of brightness and doesn't care about our dramas. It's too cool to notice stars, except by the faintest nudge. It whispers, if anything, that the pattern set long ago, those tiny imbalances, was enough to steer everything that came after. There's a comfort here. The small matters. Slight differences, stretched and tended by time, make constellations of consequence. Your own days know this, the minor kindness, the breath you remember to take, the 3 minutes you give to silence before the next obligation. That's the pattern that steers your little universe toward calm. Let your breath lengthen. Imagine the darkness between the first stars as the space behind your closed eyes, and the stars themselves as the warm flecks that appear when the eyelids are thinned to the lamp. They sparkle not for your entertainment, but because light, once allowed, is hard to keep quiet. The first stars are teachers in extremis. They teach how to live fast and give back. They teach that stability and radiance are bargains struck in cores where gravity and pressure argue themselves into music. Their deaths will teach how to seed the medium with ingredients for delicacy later. Dust to cool clouds, metals to permit smaller stars, and longer lives. There's a rhythm to this unfolding that rewards patience. Release the fog, release the light. Let gravity gather, kindle the first fires. Use their light to change the room for the next. You don't need to memorize the order. Your body already knows it. How many times have you dimmed a lamp, let your thoughts clear, felt some deeper pull, arrange things inside you, and then, quietly, felt warmth kindle at your center? Not excitement, not anxiety, but a stable glow that says you can keep going. The universe is practicing that now, at scale. Inside your chest, your heart works without your permission. Inside a young cosmos, the first stars work without anyone's applause. Still, you can be grateful. Their light has been traveling ever since, pouring outward in all directions, some of it reaching now, brushing your window, pooling faintly on the floorboards, reflected off clouds you'll never name. Every photon is a traveler with a simple story. I was released. I moved. I arrived. The story is clean enough to sleep by, and yet beginning stack. The start of light is followed by the start of structure. In the faint gravity wells seeded by those early differences, streams of matter gather like rain finding gullies. These gatherings, star by star, knit into the swirls and disks and halos we will one day call galaxies. Gravity is slow-handed, but its hands never tire. It keeps braiding, keeps drawing in, keeps balancing collapse with the angular momentum that refuses to fold. Out of this dialogue arise shapes with memory, spirals that remember spin, clusters that remember collisions, halos that remember the dark matter scaffold that cradled them. But that is for next time. For now, stay with the experience of fog becoming clarity, silence, learning how to shine, darkness, learning it can host rather than hide. Notice your shoulders again. If they're still a little high, let them melt a fraction. You have time. The universe took its time to let light go, and then took more time to let light kindle itself in stars. Between those two gifts, there was a pause, a dark that was not empty, but expectant. You, too, can be expectant without rushing. Between breath in and breath out, there is a pause. Between thought and sleep, there is the shore where waves hush out and return. We're almost at the place where the many fires gather into cities of stars. The kitchen of being now has lamps. Dust begins to cool the next generation of clouds. Smaller, steadier stars will burn for billions of years, and around some of them, disks of gas and rock will practice rounding themselves into worlds. One of those worlds will learn tides and weather and green. One of them will learn a word for sky, and later, a word for home. Before that, let the last of this chapter's light wash through you. Picture the first porch light switching on down a long road at night, and then a second, and a third, until the road knows itself by its lights. The universe has learned transparency and learned fire. It is ready to learn community. As we turn the page, we'll step into the slow choreography of galaxies forming, colliding, settling into grace. And from their debris, we'll watch the quiet spin-up of a small star with a patient disk, an address we will one day call ours. By now, the night outside your window has learned your name. It leans close, respectful of your breathing, and the room holds a quiet shaped like you. Out beyond roofs and clouds, the first lamps of the cosmos have multiplied. Light is no longer a rumor, it's a custom. From scattered fires, patterns emerge, gravity drawing stars into families the way stories draw listeners into a circle. Imagine filaments, long, faint rivers of matter threading the dark, invisible hands guiding bright beads to gather where the threads cross. At those crossings, swirls appear clumsy at first, then elegant proto-galaxies colliding, merging, learning the etiquette of spin. Spin is a soft insistence that prevents total collapse, a remembered sideways motion that becomes grace. What begins as a tumble finds a rhythm. The rhythm widens into arms. You've seen this before, without leaving Earth. The way a dancer's skirt flares when she turns. The way a schoolyard whirl on a merry-go-round creates its own calm against falling. These gatherings are not tender by our human standards. They grind and blend. They throw off tides of stars. They pull each other's shapes into tides and bridges. Still, they are not cruel. They are busy, and in their busyness, order arrives. Disks form and thicken. Halos settle like shawls over shoulders. Central masses learn to be quiet anchors with wild hearts. In the cores of many galaxies, black holes grow not as villains, but as keepers of balance, the way a deep well can make a village possible. Stars spill close to these wells and slingshot out. Gas funnels in and heats. Sometimes the core flares brilliant. Sometimes it purrs. The whole becomes a living weather map of gravity and light. Let your breath move, as if tracing a spiral. In, circling, out, circling back. The Milky Way, our eventual home, is one of these slow circling cities. Its arms are not solid ribbons, but traffic patterns, places where stars and gas, moving, are more likely to meet. In the meetings, clouds compress. In the compressions, stars kindle. The galaxy becomes a memory palace of repeatedly learned lessons. Gather, ignite, return. Gather, ignite, return. On the outskirts, satellite galaxies sweep by like cousins visiting. Sometimes they stay and become part of the family. Sometimes they fling gifts of gas and clusters and leave. Inside these disks, dust begins its quiet magic. Dust seems like a nuisance when you're cleaning, but in the cosmic kitchen, it is a gift. It cools clouds, lets them collapse more easily, shields fragile molecules from harsh light, provides surfaces where chemistry can take its first slow breaths. There is a sweetness to this stage, a patience you can practice with your own body. When you feel a thought coming hot, let it cool on the dust of your attention. See how easily it settles, how ready it becomes to take a shape that won't scorch your hand. Galaxies collide not as crashes but as waltzes stretched over eons. They pass through each other's stars, mostly missing stars, while their tides pull long bridges, their centers circle and decide whether to share a future. Sometimes, a merger leaves a smooth elliptical, a garden of old suns without much gas to make new ones. Sometimes, the result is a rejuvenated disk with starbursts like fireworks, frozen in a long exposure photograph. The sky, if you could watch in very slow motion, would look like lakes colliding, surfaces rippling, waves combining into patterns too large for a single evening's attention. We are here for the feeling of it, the long patience, the way motion becomes architecture. Somewhere in an arm that will eventually be called Orion, a modest cloud of gas and dust begins to lean inward on itself. A whisper more matter here, a whisper less there, the old stretched ripples still steering. The cloud falls, flattening into a disk, because spin refuses to be ignored. In the center, a protostar kindles, red and shy at first, wrapped in its cocoon. The disk is messy, pebbles, ice, shavings of rock, swirls inside swirls. Collisions are constant, but not all collisions are arguments. Some are agreements written in impact craters and gentle stickiness. Pieces meet, break, meet again, stick longer. Kilometer-sized bodies learn the heft of being. Gravity, even small gravity, is persuasive. The star grows steadier. Its core finds the balance to burn hydrogen calmly for billions of years, a slow flame perfect for company. Winds from the young sun push, while the disk's own turbulence pulls. In that push and pull, rings appear where particles eddy and linger. In those rings, planets begin to imagine themselves. It does not happen quickly. Nothing important does. Think of a potter's wheel turning under wet clay. The bowl not sculpted in an instant, but coaxed by fingertips that know when to press and when to wait. In the outer cold, where ice is abundant, giant planets inflate around cores of rock and frozen water. Their gravity carves lanes, shepherding leftovers into belts. Closer in, heat keeps things simpler and harsher. Metal and rock dominate. Worlds small and large hammer themselves into spheres, then into quieter versions of themselves. Somewhere in the third lane from the star, impacts grow fewer. The surface, still molten in places, begins to cool. The thin breath of an atmosphere tries out its first compositions. Comets come and go like wandering storytellers, bringing volatiles, the idea of oceans, the taste of blue. Let your jaw slacken just a little. Let your tongue rest comfortably. The new sun becomes a clock that sets a rhythm for the disk. Day-night is not yet a thing on the forming worlds, but cycles already exist. Periods of orbit, resonance between siblings, beats set by gravity's metronome. On one young world, the crust thickens like a scab, then fractures. Volcanoes exhale. Rain begins in fits, turning to steam until the air remembers how to keep water. Eventually, water persists as lakes and seas. The sky darkens to a blue that invites names. The moon arrives by violence that is also joining a glancing blow from a worldlet nearly a twin, a splash of rock that gathers and rounds and begins to circle. The tilt this leaves behind becomes a gift. Seasons, subtle at first, then confident. Tides tug, coastlines learn breathing. Shallow pools warm and cool, concentrate and dilute, offering little theaters for chemistry to rehearse. Lightning writes temporary scribbles across a dense sky. Hydrothermal vents stitch warmth into the seabed. The planet keeps trying different masks until one fits. An atmosphere that can cradle liquid water, a crust that can recycle itself and feed nutrients to the sea, a magnetic field to shoo away the harshest particles. In the galaxy's broad calendar, this is Tuesday afternoon early, ordinary, promising. Elsewhere, supernovas are schooling the medium with heavier elements. Elsewhere, pairs of stars are cooking each other's atmospheres with flares. Elsewhere, planets form and fail and form again. Here, a quiet lane in a spiral arm, nothing special by cosmic standards, is becoming a room with windows. The sun's temperament helps. It is steady, not too hot, not too variable. It is small enough to burn patiently, large enough to keep its children warm. You couldn't pick a gentler chaperone for a long experiment. You might feel, in your body now, a soft echo of these slow circles, the way your thoughts return to the same soothing images, watery ones, perhaps, or the shape of a road you know by heart. Repetition is not monotony when it is a foundation. The solar system repeats itself every orbit. Earth repeats itself daily. Your heart repeats itself each minute, so the rest of you can explore novelty safely. Lean into the repetition. Let it rock you. Time inside galaxies is elastic. Collisions that sculpt a disk happen over hundreds of millions of years. The building of a small, stable planet is a melody played on a patient instrument. Our senses are tuned to quicker tempos, so we translate the slowness into images. A wheel turning, a pot taking shape, a lantern city seen from far above, the roads lit in curving lines. Those images are good enough to sleep by. They're true in the way lullabies are true, faithful to feeling, precise where precision fosters trust, softened where sharpness would wake you. From the start of this chapter to now, the room of the universe has learned manners. It knows how to spin without falling apart, how to merge without forgetting its history, how to cool a cloud until it can knit a star, how to lay a disk and set it to rights. It has learned to make homes. They are not all like ours, and that is a comfort. Variety means resilience. In some systems, giants crowd close to their suns, like exuberant children refusing bedtime. In others, multiple small worlds share temperate lanes. Ours is one arrangement among many. What matters for tonight is that arrangements like ours are possible at all. If you listen carefully, you might hear the hush that comes over a house when the last lamp is turned off, when only the refrigerator hums and the pipes occasionally click. The early solar system had that hush once the major hammering slowed. Just occasional visitors, adjustments, latecomer comets, the steady cooling of crust, and the slow settling of oceans into shapes they preferred. The planet that would host forests and cities spent a long time learning to exhale properly. It tried out climates. It tested its shields. It tuned its rotation and tilt and wobble into a lull that could cradle delicate chemistry. And the galaxy kept circling. Our system swung around the Milky Way's center, not in a perfect circle, but in a comfortable loop, joining the long parade of stars. From that vantage, a tiny porch on a tiny house on a long, slow rotating street, the night sky is a neighborly chaos. Constellations that mean different animals to different people. A hazy band that is the city we live inside, seen from the residential lane. Occasional fireworks when a passing pebble meets air. We're close now to a threshold that looks small on paper and enormous in feeling. The moment chemistry becomes appetite when the planet's patient conditions tease matter into metabolism. The story of galaxies has delivered us to a beach where waves play the same chords all day. The story of the solar system has placed a kettle on the coals and set out bowls. The rest is a simmer that will take a while, a long while. But you don't need to stay awake for every bubble. Your task is simpler: to breathe and to allow. So let your shoulders sink another millimeter. Let the bed learn a deeper imprint of you. The spirals will keep circling whether or not you supervise them. The sun will rise without your permission. The clay on the potter's wheel will find its bowl. As we turn to the next chapter, we'll narrow from the grandeur of cities of stars to the small bravery of a tide pool and a spark. From there, to cells that remember how to copy themselves. From there, to minds that remember the sky. The universe has built neighborhoods. Next, it builds a neighbor who looks up. The kitchen of worlds has grown quiet enough to hear small sounds. Waves keep their steady arguments with the shore. Rain finds the old paths it always finds. The planet breathes mist and light. In some shallow place where rock meets water, meets sky, chemistry lingers after the tide pulls back. Heat and salt and minerals make a broth that refuses to be only broth. The simmering takes its time longer than mountains stand, longer than languages last, and yet it is patient in a way that makes patience feel like power. Imagine a pool warmed by sun and rock, visited by lightning and starlight and dust, from old exploded stars. Within it, simple molecules discover that touching changes them. A piece finds another piece that fits not perfectly, but well enough to hold for a moment. Then another moment. Chains form. Some of these chains learn a trick. Folded just so, they can coax other chains to form. A loop of help. A structure that builds its kin, that resists falling apart, that tries again when it does. Nothing conscious, not yet. Only a bias towards staying, a fondness for patterns that keep repeating. If you have ever watched dew gather along the edge of a leaf, each droplet finding its sphere, you know the pleasure water takes in rounding. The first little compartments, membranes, are a similar pleasure. Thin soap bubble walls fatten with purpose, corralling the useful inside, keeping the harsh outside at a negotiable distance. Within these walls, the broth becomes a room. In that room, reactions that would be lost to the sea find each other again and again, practicing until practice becomes habit. One habit is memory, not the kind that recalls birthdays, but the kind in which a molecule acts as a template, its shape implying another of its kind. Copying is clumsy at first, full of mistakes, and the mistakes are gifts. Some copies keep themselves better, some invite help, some fail and their parts are scavenged. The pool, the vent, the little pocket of warm clay. Choose your theater, does not mind. Time is the stagehand that never sleeps. With each rehearsal, the script sharpens. A way to gather energy, a way to spend it, a way to wall off just enough to be a self without becoming a prison. A cell is not a miracle so much as a patience turned inside out. It eats light or minerals. It secretes. It repairs. It divides. Division is both loss and abundance. One becomes two, and two carry the room forward. The world is still mostly rock and wind, but its skin begins to itch with life. The ocean learns the word green. At first, the green is quiet, a thin breath along a shore. Then it is bolder, filling the shallows, building reefs, teaching the sky to change. The planet's air, once harsh and private, accepts oxygen like a new idea. Oxygen can be generous, and it can be dangerous. Either way, it makes more things possible. The day grows deeper. The night becomes sharper with stars. You could call this era a long sigh toward complexity. Cells learn cooperation. One swallows another and, instead of digesting it, hires it. Stay, it says. Make energy for me, and I will feed you safety. Partnerships become standard. Inside the new, larger cells, tiny engines hum relics of ancient independence, now intimate as organs. With more energy comes more daring. Cells try sizes and shapes and strategies. They reach by flagella or by patience. They build shells. They learn to stick to their neighbors and to keep sticking after dividing. Multicellularity is a gamble that pays out slowly. A colony of cells decides to specialize. These will handle light. These will move. These will form a skin against the world's weather. The body becomes a choir. No single voice could carry the song. Together, they can sing softly and be heard. In time, bodies prosper in many forms, filaments and fronds, rings and sheets, tubes and sponges, and animals with axes that invite symmetry. The ocean, which has been the first home all along, becomes crowded with invention. The planet tries a fanfare called the Cambrian, but you don't need the name. Think instead of a night where every window lights up at once. Limbs, eyes, armor, jaws, solutions bloom, each creating new problems that invite newer solutions. Predators wake up, prey learns to hide. The dance writes rules. and then breaks them as quickly. Still, beneath the bustle, the same quiet arithmetic holds. A body needs a way to know itself, a way to coordinate its many voices, a way to rest and repair. Brains are gatherings of attention. At first, small clusters of cells that relay feeling to movement. Touch here, flex there, taste this, move toward that. Over long time, the relay knits into circuitry, and circuits discover what rhythm can do. Rhythm coordinates. It predicts. It saves energy by anticipating the near future, like stepping in time with a song so your body doesn't argue with itself. The more lives entangle with light and dark, the more the planet's turning sets a metronome beneath everything else. Day means this. Night means that. Flowers open, plankton rise, predators hunt by dawn. Bodies learn to time their chores. Sleep is a discipline older than thought. Long before stories, bodies learned that periodic stillness keeps the song playable. Cells repair, waste clears. Memories of danger, of food, of safe paths settle into longer-lasting forms. Even creatures without our kind of brain switch off, as if the world has taught them a secret. If you stop, you move better later. You feel this secret in your own muscles now, the way heaviness asks to be trusted. Sleep isn't absence. It's maintenance and sorting and rehearsal. On land, the story learns new textures. Plants swing the planet's gases toward a sweeter mix. Roots stitch continents to their soil. Forests practice the architecture of shade. Insects invent the sky. Amphibians test legs. Reptiles refine the test. Later, feathers. Later, milk. Catastrophes come and go like hard winters, retrimming the tree of life. Survival is not a morality. It is a set of accidents that could have been otherwise. Still, over and over, you can sense the same slow intelligence at work. Keep what works. Try what might work better. Rest. Whenever resting preserves the power to try again. Mammals inherit a night-leaning appetite and a gift for warmth. They sleep deeply, dream vividly. They parent long, which is a way of trusting time. In their skulls, brains learn to negotiate between old needs and new possibilities, to lay a reflex with reflection. Neurons that once only fired for touch now repurpose to hold symbols and songs. Lullabies become as important as claws. Somewhere on this braided path, apes stand in taller grass, hands freed from ground to cradle, to carry, to point. Pointing becomes language. Language becomes a way to share attention. Look there. Remember this. Tonight we sleep by the river. Stories start as instructions and bloom into meaning. The brain, already a rhythm factory, becomes a theater that can stage the past and rehearse the future. Fire moves in. With fire, nights lengthen. With safety and talk. Under new stars, a new animal spends hours each day with eyes closed, running in place through remembered paths and imagined ones. Dreams become consultations between bodies and their possible tomorrows. If this seems like flattery for our kind, let's soften it. We are not the point. We are a point. Consciousness in us is a surface the universe uses to feel itself in one more way. We are a late poem written with an alphabet, forged in stars and revised by oceans. Our minds are wet instruments tuned by the planet's turning, tuned by meals and moonlight, tuned by each other. When you close your eyes at night, you are not leaving the world. You are joining a very old practice the world does with itself. It goes dark to see better. There is science inside this softness. In sleep, your brain's waste-clearing channels open wider. The day's debris is washed away like sand from a porch. Memories thin into essentials. Patterns are strengthened. Fear is rehearsed and filed into context where it can inform without flooding. The senses rest, so their signal will be clean tomorrow. Muscles rebuild. Hormones reset. You know these as facts, because people who loved facts measured them. Tonight, you can know them as comfort, a listless peace drifting through you, doing repair work while you do nothing at all. Dreams borrow pieces from everywhere, faces, places, a corridor from childhood glued to the stairwell of last week. They recombine like early molecules, searching for a configuration that holds. Sometimes they are unsettling. Sometimes they are sweet rehearsal. Often they are nonsense that still leaves you lighter. They are a conversation between layers of you that can't speak during the day because the day is loud. In this conversation, you are more than your errands. You are a creature whose inside world is allowed to be large. Consciousness itself may be a light, not unlike those first stars, kindled by many small relations, brief in the measure of galaxies, bright enough to change the room around it. But we do not have to decide what consciousness is to benefit from its kindnesses. One kindness is attention choosing where to rest it, noticing that breath continues without you, inviting muscles to loosen because they are allowed to. Another is humility, recalling that the same physics that settled the first atoms curls your fingers towards sleep. Your ancestors watched the sky and guessed stories, some wild, some wise. They named constellations and told children which months brought rain. They used the stars as calendars and sermons and romance and maps. You can feel them at your back when you stare into the dark and listen for distant traffic or wind in leaves. Their awe is also yours, but softened by a more detailed map. We know now that the Milky Way is not milk, but a lane in a city of lanes. That our sun is ordinary in the precise way that allows comfort. That our planet is small in a way that allows intimacy. Knowing this does not threaten sleep. It prepares it. Scale is a lullaby. The more space surrounds you, the safer your smallness feels. Let's return to the body. Notice the weight of your hands where they rest. Notice the point where your heel touches the sheet. These contacts are your local gravity, the way the planet says, "Here is down, I will hold you." Every atom in you belongs to an old story. Hydrogen from the earliest pantry, carbon from stars that died to make room, calcium from seas that remembered their shells. You are a museum of quiet explosions, of tides, of patient chemistry. Breathing, you return a little borrowed air to the room. Exhaling, you cool your own atmosphere. Inhaling, you rehearse the first inhale of everything. We are tempted, sometimes, to make our kind the ending of the story, the triumphant chorus. But no chorus ends the music. It continues in voices we don't understand yet, in microbes trading genes in soils, in octopuses tasting light through their skin, in trees pulsing sugars to neighbors in drought. Our brilliance is one brightness among many in a universe that is practiced at brightness. The generosity is that we can notice, and that noticing can soften us. Softness is not weakness. It is accurate for night. Vastness is not loneliness. It is company scaled beyond faces. The universe did not hurry to make you, and it does not mind if you rest. Your to-do list is loud because it is small. The large things move quietly. Galaxies turn. Continents breathe. Somewhere far away, a star ends and salts a nebula with iron that will someday draw a compass needle toward north. Somewhere inside you, 1,000 small repairs proceed without your permission. If guilt tries to stand up and remind you of anything, give it a chair and a blanket. Tell it the galaxies are working the night shift. Tell it the ocean never clocks out. Tell it the neurons will file the day and delete the copies. It can rest. You can rest. All you're doing is joining a rhythm older than bone. We have walked from chemistry's first shy clusters to the tender weather inside a human skull. We have watched fog clear and fires kindle. We have stood in slow circles while a modest sun learned to be steady. We have seen cells invent togetherness, and togetherness invent songs. The dream that knows it is dreaming. This is who you are at the edge of sleep, a story aware of being a story, content to keep telling itself in softer and softer tones until it becomes silence. As you drift, let an image hold you, a coastline at night, seen from high above. The Black Sea is studded with small lamps, villages, then cities. Some wink out, some thaw, some move. Over the sea hangs a river of light that is the Milky Way, which is a city too large for our kind of counting. Somewhere in that river, our porch light glows warm. Inside the house, someone turns down the last dimmer. The refrigerator hums, pipes click. A child rolls over. You, in your room, are that house. The cosmos is your neighborhood. Everyone is going to bed. When the breath you are following becomes soft enough to lose, let it go. It keeps itself. The universe will keep itself too. In the morning, when you wake, you will remember just enough that you belong to something slow and kind, that patience is a law of nature, that rest is not a retreat, but a preparation. For now, let your body grow heavy and your thoughts light. Let the floor of awareness drop an inch, then a mile. Let the long, sleepy history of the universe end where it began, in a breath you don't have to manage, carrying you without effort into a night that holds you exactly as you are. The room is quiet now. What began as a hush that became a universe has circled back to hush again, only softer, wider, with you inside it. We've drifted through the first inhale, through the fine flower of being, through fog turning clear and stars kindling, through slow circles building a modest sun and a blue address, through the patient chemistry that learned to dream. You don't need to carry any of it. Let the images unhook like buttons. The valley mist lifting, the lantern fields of stars, a tide pool warmed by morning, a small porch light in the spiral arm. They can glow without you tending them. Your breath keeps the simplest promise: arrive, leave, arrive, and that is enough. If a thought returns, give it distance, the way night gives distance to hills. Let it soften until it is only shape, then only shade, then gone. The same gravity that gathers galaxies is gathering you to the mattress. The same patience that made oceans is smoothing your brow. You are made of the universe's oldest ingredients and its newest chances. Nothing more is required. If this brought you calm, stay with me just long enough to feel the last dimmer slide down. The house of the body settles. The city of the mind powers low. Outside, the long river of the Milky Way keeps moving, a light you don't have to hold. Sleep. The story will keep itself.
you.